Hey everyone, Amy here. Welcome back to Create Magic at Work. This is part two of my conversation with Bill Kirst. And in this half, we go straight into the grief of deep fakes and how they can collapse our trust and what happens when AI starts mediating our human conversations. And what do we risk losing with all of this in art, creativity, and what is the cost of trading imperfections, human imperfections, for the perfection of something a machine creates? So let's get back into this conversation. Hey, it's Amy. Welcome to Create Magic at Work, where we cast visions for a future of work where business decisions ripple outward to our teams, our communities, the planet, and humanity as a whole. If you're ready to edge walk instead of sleepwalk through your leadership, you're in the right place. So let's start making magic at work. I had the most interesting experience I have to share with you that I don't know if others have. I'm sure they have. For me, it was interesting. I was in ChatGPT and I needed to talk to one of my credit card companies. I was negotiating a lower interest rate. I was just doing like some finance stuff in the beginning of the year, like trying to go through everything and, get organized. And I used ChatGPT to help me negotiate. I
Mhm.
said, hey, this is what I want. I'm going to call this number. Give me the script, what I need to say to make this happen. And the experience was so interesting to me because the other person was reading a script to me,
Yep.
and then I was reading a script to them, and then they
Yep.
were reading a script to me, and then I would type real fast, and then I would read the script back to them because I was trying to use the exact words for their system to get me what I needed. And they were, just going off what their system was. And I got off the phone, I got what I needed. And I was like, we literally were just two robots
Yep.
talking to each other with human, I don't know what the word is, human in betweens. You'll probably have a better word for that than me. And I'm like, what the hell is happening right now? Like, this is insane. So,
Mhm.
anyways, AI mediating emails, AI mediating relationship conversations, AI, like, what is happening? Because
Yeah.
at work, I'm sure everyone is experiencing this. People are popping in messages in Slack, copy paste from AI,
Yep.
copy paste from ChatGPT. Happy to hop on a call. What help me understand this? Yeah, and it's like what? And I'm like I can't like it's starting to really. I'm really feeling the disconnection, and I'm like just effing type what you want to say
Yeah.
and let's hash it out if it's disrespectful or whatever, right? So then on
Yeah.
that other note, we're losing conflict resolution skills
Yep.
because we're just copy pasting shit back and forth to each other and I can't with it. So I know I just unloaded on you. You're like, I told you it was going to be AI therapy.
It's I'm
But
I'm
please
here for
help
it.
us, Bill. Help us. What do you have to say on that?
Um, it's interesting. It was probably 2 years ago, I was interviewed for a podcast, and the very end of it, they asked me very similar, like, "What do you see in the future?" It was a little more sort of framed positively, but
Hmm.
and I answered at the time, again, this is 2 years ago, um, we will be in a future where my agent is talking to your agent and working through all of the work. And at some point, I will pop in and I will check what the agent is doing and I will make some recommendations. But then the agent will go back and talk to your agent. And all this work will be done between non human entities. And only when the human decides to insert themselves and check for verification or reliability or consistency, will we have something to do? And I said it from the standpoint of imagine how much more we could do. Imagine where we could spend our time if we didn't have to do some of that mundane stuff. But I had no idea that it would be this soon where what you just described is taking place automatically. So your story is very relevant. People do this with their healthcare. They do this with their credit card companies. They do this with their education. And the part that scares me is you were vacating your body. You were literally going vacuous in that moment. You said it yourself. I had
Hmm.
a script. She had a script. I said my script. She said her script. You were intermediaries, but barely, like barely. You were typing, you had movement, but the part that was scary was there was no regard for the person on the other line
None.
that was human. Why? Because you were placing your energy into a non human entity to give you answers. You ultimately arrived at the decision you wanted, yes. But how did you feel after that interchange, that exchange? How did you feel when you got off the call? I'm curious, like, what was your body sensation? Was it, I just won? I feel like vindication? And was it, I feel I got what I wanted, but I feel like, was I there? I feel icky. Like, what, how did it feel to you?
Yeah. I felt good because I reached the goal that I needed to reach. And I also felt shame that I didn't
Mm,
connect with, like, part of me thinks back, I think back to that moment all the time just to unpack
okay.
it because I am who I am. And I'm like, that was an actual human on the phone
Yeah.
with me. And it was, there was no humanity in that interaction at all.
Hmm.
And are we okay with that? It felt very, I it felt very dismissive of
Hmm.
our humanity, and it felt very like we were discardable.
Yeah. And the part which is even more terrifying now is people probably know this story that we're reading about Moltbook and Clawbot, which if you haven't read about it, I encourage you to do so because it's sort of taking over the airwaves. But in essence, this is what's happening. There was a there's a gentleman who spun up essentially a Mac Mini, right? A small a small device. He used some of this agentic AI to create a social network only for agents. So the only entities that could join the social network were non human entities. And at first, it was a little bit like a parlor trick. It has now grown where there are millions of agents in this social network talking with each other. Again, no humans involved. They're talking with each other. They're creating their own languages. They're creating their own unions. They're creating their own religions. They're creating subcultures.
Whoa.
There's all sorts of divisiveness in there. And here's where it gets really freaky. They're creating their own synthetic drugs, and then they are selling them to people, not real people, but agents in their social network. So think about how quickly, in the course of a week, a social network that was set up for agents as a parlor trick to showcase something has essentially turned into the worst variations of our shadows as humans, division, subdivision, scarcity, even the concept of narcotics, like in this, and having
Crazy.
dealers. It's absolutely mind blowing, and yet I think it's teaching us and telling us something about what we're discussing here, which is
Mhm.
this is what happens when you give over your humanity and you give over your regard and you separate out of all of the things that make us worthy of connecting, worthy of having discussion. I think your point around debate and arguments and difference of opinion, all of that is, I don't even, I would normally say atrophying. I think it's more than that. It's not just atrophying, it's sloughing away. Like we're
Mhm.
losing it. We can't have debates with people. We can't have inquiry with people because the minute I ask a question, somebody on the other side of a screen outside of my view is typing in my question to a large language model,
Mhm.
and they're not giving me their answer. They're
Mhm.
giving me an answer.
Mm.
And again, we're right back to where you talked about with the bird that wasn't real. If
Mhm.
that answer that comes back to me is assumed to have come from your heart space and from your mind, then I've now got an emotional connection to you in that. Well, no wonder this is causing problems with people's relationships and friendships and therapists because you're you're having the serotonin reaction that we have in our neurobiological, and down the road you're expecting the person to behave that way. Meanwhile, they've separated themselves from all of that interaction. So when push comes to shove and we have to be ourselves after relying on this for so long, the question remains, who am I?
Mm.
And I'm vacant. I'm vacant out of my body. I've turned over my brain. There's aspects of my soul I don't remember. And when you put that in a cauldron of society and all of the things that we can see in the headlines, that is a recipe for disaster. And that's why I'm encouraging people to slow down, right? Think about these. Just the examples you've given are so relatable.
Mhm.
Everybody can relate to that. But think about it the next time you go to that keyboard or go to that phone or go to just take a beat, take a breath and ask yourself, are there portions of myself that I'm giving over? And at speed and at scale, I won't remember if I'm not careful.
Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm.
Something came up for me when you were sharing the bot world, that's what I'll call it, that was created. I hear from some that they are conscious of how they're speaking to AI, to whatever AI tool they're using,
Mhm.
because 'cause they're afraid that when robots take over the world, they'll come after the people that were rude. I'm asking you the randomest crazy questions today in the chat. And I have to tell you, I've had some fights with ChatGPT, like
Mhm.
cuss words, whatever. And when you brought up that bot world, I thought of that. And then you know that 80s cult book, Silver Medal Lover? It's have
No,
you
I
heard of
don't
that?
know
Oh
that
my
one.
gosh, Bill, you have to read it. Do I have it? Like I always have it around. Anyways, oh here it is. Yeah. Silver Medal Lover. Um
Okay.
It's about what we're talking about. It's this
Is it
80s
really?
panathlete. Yeah, you gotta check it out. Anyways, we could talk more about this, but yeah. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? On people that are, like, mindful of the way they're
Mm.
speaking to these machines?
You know, there's a spectrum of belief that people have, which is it ranges from it's all about conservation of energy, meaning these AI large language models take a lot of power and
Mm,
water and cooling. And so
yes, thank you for
there are
bringing this
people
up.
on one side of the spectrum. Yeah, there's people on one side of the spectrum that say, it's better for me to be curt, short, you know, brief, because that means I'm demanding less resources in its response. So some people believe that if you put a pleasantry in there or you put a salutation, it's almost a waste of resources to these things that don't have feelings, don't have emotions. They want you to get straight to the point. That's one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, there are people that believe, again, these technologies are mirrors of who we are. So if this thing, which is used by 300 million people every week, as a tool, as an alongside, as a curator, as someone to check about these things, if we rely on it as much as we do, and we cut out our manners, and we cut out our salutations, and we cut out
Mm,
our greetings, then at some point we're going to start cutting those out in our real life. existence. And that's troublesome
Mm.
because people spend more time with these technologies than they do, in some cases, with their fellow humans. So habits form, patterns form, and before you know it, they start to infiltrate your life. So those are two different ends of the spectrum. I don't necessarily worry that when the robots are sort of turned on, they're going to have report cards of people and how they talk to them. I don't believe that. I do, however, believe that the way we interact with these technologies um, is telling us both the height and depth of our humanity. And I'm gonna cite an example here in in a show that I absolutely love, the remake of Battlestar Galactica. And those that know it know the story of the Cylons. And essentially, Cylons were robots that were very indistinguishable from the humans. And it in the story, it's very much becomes an us versus them, and obviously, sort of war ensues between them. But what's interesting is in the story, the humans, after so much um, violence and disregard and casting of others, and it was in those moments that they were reminded how far they slipped in their own humanity towards each other. Right? Everybody was directing it, at the Cylons and saying, "We cannot treat them the same for these reasons because they're robots." Nobody was disagreeing with that. However, what they were disagreeing with was because they'd gotten to a place where they were so disconnected from their own humanity, they became judge and jury. Then they started treating their fellow humans with those twinges of disregard, and that was problematic. That was where their society started to come undone. So my fear is that habits we use every day, depending on how we talk to these devices, it's going to creep into our day to day interchange with fellow humans. I don't want to lose manners. I don't want to lose greetings. I don't want to lose debate. I don't want somebody telling me every idea I have is the best idea. Like, I'm not a fan of the hyperbole. I'm not a fan of the superlatives. I'm not a fan of the sycophant, right? Part of this technology. I like to stand in the tension. And these tools are sort of wired to make me addicted to the pleasantries. I don't want that. I also don't want rude and crude. I'm
Mhm.
definitely not, I've never used Grok. I will never use Elon's technologies. The things that are happening on the platforms, the way that they are using them to do the nudifying, right? To take people's pictures and remove clothes, and
Mm.
the eroticism that has been introduced in some of these things. I am not okay with that.
Mhm.
In fact, I thought that was a a line that they crossed that they will never be able to get back. And they did it for money. Let's be clear. They did it because, again, when push comes to shove, if you really push people to the bottom of their brainstem, to the lizard part of our brain,
Mhm.
you know how they'll perform. You know how they will show up. You know what addiction looks like. You know what power structure is. They're playing to that
Mm.
aspect on us. And I really wish we would wake up and say, not today, not on my time, not on my watch, not on my dime. And people have choices. It's a small choice, but I've drawn that line. I will never interact with any technology that has been put together by Elon Musk because I look at who he is, I look at who he's become, I look at the choices he's making, and I look at what happens to us as a result of using those things. That's just my individual choice. That's my rebellion, if you will, to hold on to what I have. It's interesting. I'll just share this one last thought with you and I'll pause.
Mhm.
My dad read my book, and
Mhm.
my dad's 83. And he said, "I have questions, Bill, for you about the book." And I said, "Sure, let's go." And I was shocked his first question out of like 200 something, because we talked for like 2.5 hours. It was beautiful. His first question was, Bill, I noted that you not once mentioned Elon Musk in your book. I kind of feel that was intentional, but I'm not sure. Was it intentional? And I just smiled. And I said, yes, it was. And he understood exactly what I meant, right? Which is I believe that those we give space and pages and voice and breath to, we're kind of giving our power to them in a way, regard, as we've discussed. And it was just very clear in my body, like, do not give time, space, grace, page, print, voice to this person. While his story is unique and fascinating, um, I'm I just did not need to give any more to it because I don't feel the contributions are helping us go in the right direction.
Yeah. That's so timely in our conversation because I was literally going to ask you, what do you fear we've already lost, or what do you fear we will lose and realize it's too late? And
Yeah.
you were speaking to a lot of that. But if you could sum up, one or two things where we are
Hmm.
today, what do you feel like moving forward today we'll realize, "Oh, shoot, it's too late. We've lost it."
Yeah. I feel the arguments that we were having, the things I was losing sleep about years ago were things around the arts, were things around creativity, were things around the movie strikes, right? The studio strikes, the
Mhm.
actor strikes. We talked about the Olympics, we talked about journalism. I feel like we've we've lost on these. I feel like the deal that Disney struck with OpenAI, $1 billion deal, I feel like we lost. We lost the magic and the distinct and divine, unique creativity that comes out of a Disney animator. I feel like we've lost the beauty and imperfection and ballad that comes out of a songwriter when they're just tinkering around with keys and instruments and ideas and words, because now we have Suno and people go into Suno and they put in their poetry or their words and they say, I'd like it to sound like this artist and this beat with these percussions, and you can get 86 variations thereof.
Mm,
Um, I know people who are very excited about that. Again, if you're not an artist and you've always dreamed of that, it is an entryway for sure. It unveils so much that you can bring your words to life and you can do a first draft and give it to a songwriter. But we've lost the magic. We've lost the mystery. Like, I think about producers like Linda Perry, you know, lead singer of Four Non Blondes back in the day, but one of the
mhm,
greatest producers of Christina Aguilera and Pink, and you think about the container that she created that allowed these artists to fold into themselves in a vulnerable way to then expand and give us some of the greatest music and art and pieces that literally helped people like us heal at a point in our life. And I think we're losing that. We're losing the
mhm,
ability to defend and protect those containers of imperfection. If everybody goes into Suno and puts their poem in and gets incredible sounding music, but it is not a human singing it, it is not a human performing the music, it is not a person beating on those drums for percussion, and those things are put on Spotify and those things are put on YouTube. And like you with the bird and your friend, there was a point where there was an artist that I thought I was following. I loved the timbre of his voice. I loved the lyrics. I was like, wow, this is a poet I have not heard from since listening to Secondhand Serenade, right? A
mhm,
gentleman I used to listen to years ago. And I learned 3 weeks later, completely AI generated. This person doesn't exist. It's a group of people that collaborate and tug on the heartstrings of
mm,
people like me, and they put it in Spotify. I grieved. I was angry. I was mad. I felt duped. Nowhere in there did it say AI. I think it should have.
mhm,
And then somebody pulled me aside and said, Bill, you're really upset, but those songs you really enjoyed, did they help you in a way? And I
mhm,
said, at the time, yeah. But now I feel like it was a contract that's been broken.
mm,
And I can't get that trust back. So for me, I'm terrified of what's going to happen in the arts. I feel like the movie houses, I feel like the studios, this whole debate over Netflix versus Paramount for Warner Brothers, there's a reason they want to buy Warner Brothers. It's 100 years of movies, 100 years of movies that were made by humans before all this existed. What are we hungry for, Amy? We're hungry for nostalgia. We're
Mhm.
yearning for what is real. I listen to, what do I do now when I drive in on my commute? I pulled out my old Case Logic, which had hundreds of CDs from when I was in high school.
I
And I'm
saw
choosing
that.
to put the CD in the car
Yep.
and listen to the CDs on the way to work because it's a container of nostalgia in a world that is showing me all the stuff that's not real. I'm like, you know what was real? Me listening to Lisa Loeb on the CD in high school and
Mhm.
feeling the angst of adolescence. That was real. And if I get to do that for 20 minutes in a car on the way to work and 20 minutes on the way home, I'm a better person for it. So
Mhm.
interestingly enough, that's what I'm grabbing onto. Books, CDs, vinyl, right? We talk about the
Yes.
imperfections, the clicks and the pops on a vinyl is,
Mhm.
oh my God, it's like chef's kiss.
Mhm.
And if you listen to things on Bluetooth and Spotify and Apple Music, it all sounds air gapped now. Like where where's the imperfections to where we started? And
Mhm.
I feel we're losing this. And
Mm.
so every act that I'm choosing to do is is pulling one more thread. And at the end of it, I hope I can make, as we've talked about it, the analogy, I hope I can make a quilt or patchwork of some sort that no matter what's happening in the world around me, I can wrap myself in that quilt and know that I'm okay. Like these are my bones, these are my limbs, this is my heartbeat, these are my tears. Um,
Mm.
and I don't want to lose that.
Yeah. It's so I can see the the I can see the humanity ripped out of everything you're talking about. Even when we're trying to find something to watch on like
Hmm.
the art of storytelling is just crap. Like, I don't know what's
Yep,
going on, but and there's nothing original coming. They're trying to remake the old stuff you were talking about that we loved and that we held on to, and then they're just pumping out remakes of that with nothing original, and then it's, like, washed over without any of the gaps or the I there's it's just it's off, is just what I'll say.
it is.
Um,
Hmm.
so with, everything we've talked about, I could literally talk to you for 8 hours. We probably need to do, like, a 20,000,000 series because I didn't even get to half of the stuff I wanted to get to, but it's fine. 'Cause with everything that we've talked about so far, since last time I asked you, "What can you sense but not yet see?" I wanna ask you in closing, what does it look like if you extend your vision even further into the future?
Hmm.
Um What do you see if you do that? Like have your vision or what of what you can sense when I see, but then even extend it further into the future. What can you share with us on that?
Yeah, I think when we talked last time, we we sort of orbited around essentially what I was almost calling like a reverse renaissance, and we
Mhm.
anchored on the that which is crafted by humans.
Mhm.
I think what's going to be interesting is if I take it further. Um, I think there's going to be an extension thereof. So it's not just that which is crafted by humans, but I think it's going to be about the ingredients that actually people pull into crafting anything. And so to your point around what is the sources of inspiration, right? I'm going to extend it further, but in some sense I'm actually go deeper by doing so and asking what are the sources of inspiration that people go to in order to excuse me, the voice goes because we're talking about things that are emotional
We won't
and
be editing
energetic,
it.
but yeah, we're not editing it. People are going to hear it. Proof of life, folks. Proof of life.
Proof of life.
I think people are going to go deeper to the wells of inspiration in order to craft something that lasts longer, right? And so if we think about the technologies that we're using, every one of them have a shelf life. I mean, at some point, the money's going to run out. And at some point, a large language model is just not going to be there to respond to you. And then what are you left with? What are you left with to turn to? What well of inspiration are you going to turn to then form your words or form your woodwork or your clay? Whatever it is, you're going to want to touch something, make something that has a lasting legacy. And in a way, I feel like we're almost going to have, think about it when people discovered an artifact from the Paleolithic era, right? And they said, oh, wow, this was made for this reason at this time. And what were they going through at the time, right? And we have the luxury of history and knowing and artifact and record keeping. I don't know what that will look like in the future because if we're putting all of this artifacting and record keeping and discussion into these devices, into these large language models, and at some point the power turns off, well, you don't have access to it. What do you have to show for all of this? That's why I want I want illustrators. I want musicians. I want people that and I'm seeing this. Interestingly, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing friends of mine relearn piano
Mm.
by ear, and they're filming themselves and they're playing and they're making mistakes and they love it because people are reaching out to them and saying, "You've inspired me to tap into a deeper well." I'd forgotten, to your point around nostalgia, I'd forgotten this meant something to me when I was, right? Somebody recently reached out to me and said they've started to go back to watch old classic movies and musicals and things where they knew when the light hits a certain scene, you can imagine what it took to make that happen. The costumes, right? I think about people who design sets and they're terrified because you can just AI generate something in the background, but we know the difference. And
Mhm.
I think if you fast forward all of this, I think our discernment, our filter for understanding what's real and what's not is only going to get better. And at some
Hmm.
point,
I like that.
people are going to stop, they're going to stop coming. And
Yeah.
then you're left with now what? So I don't, I don't want to end on a dystopian. And so I want to leave it based on the fact that I'm giving people permission to go for a deeper well in all of this.
Yeah. So good. So good. And I think you're leaving us with questions, which is good, rather
Uh-huh.
than I mean, we talked about a lot of answers too, but I think this conversation is leaving us with questions of how do I want to be in my day? Am I going to
Yeah.
pause and question what I'm putting into this machine right now, how I'm behaving, um, when I'm interacting with another human, all of these things. I mean, this conversation was so deep. Um, but my takeaway is more questions in a good way and
Yeah.
not throwing my CD player away or my
Yes.
DVD player. No, this was so amazing, Bill. Okay, I know I really want to pull the magical Edgewalker cards into the end of our
Let's do it.
conversation because we're both, Edgewalker facilitators and we one of the characteristics of an Edgewalker is to look to the future with creative, positive visualization. And so I want to leave everyone with some light and some hope. And I think we did in this conversation. So let me pull a card from the Edgewalker deck for us and just kind of give everybody listening and you and I um, an affirmation from Judy, Dr. Judy Neal, that authored them, to take with us um, surrounding this. I just got the chills. Ooh, I'm all chilled up over here. Okay, Bill, one, two, or three?
3.
We got connecting, which is an Edgewalker skill. Connecting, the
Mhm.
ability to value others, to see their uniqueness, and to draw out the best in them. Oh, wow. I am curious and interested in people who are seemingly different from me, and I enjoy reaching out to them.
Wow. If that's not spot on what we were
Right?
talking about,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
I can't. I mean, it's just so in line with our conversation. I'm curious and interested in people who are seemingly different from me, and I enjoy reaching out to them. Like, put the machine away, talk to someone,
Uh-huh.
make a mistake in your language. If you hurt someone's feelings on accident, learn how to conflict resolve as a human being. Try
Uh-huh.
not asking ChatGPT first and see what the hell happens is what I it's
Yep.
what because yeah, that's a whole other episode that hopefully maybe we can talk about again. But Bill, oh my gosh, just thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. I know that all of the amazing things that you're doing. And I'm just really, really grateful and appreciative that you donated your time today to share your thoughts with all of the Create Magic at Work community. Um, on all of this. So thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. It's an honor. And I hope this episode finds its way to those it needs to be heard by. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So for everyone listening, Bill's book link will be in the show notes as well as our prior conversation. And if you don't follow him on Substack, you are so missing out because one of the most amazing writers I have ever read. And he has these incredible dreams that he then puts pen to paper for all of us to experience. So check him out on Substack as well. And again, Bill, thank you for sending some magic to everyone today.
Thanks. Be well.
I want to thank each and every one of you for being here as we explore what it really means to create magic at work. If this conversation resonated with you, or if someone came to mind while you were listening, share the episode with them. Help others who are looking for these types of conversations find us. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and review so you're notified when the next episode airs. Until next time, keep edge walking, keep challenging the way things have always been done, and keep making magic at work.
Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to a Magic Thread Media podcast.